I want to thank you for coming out this morning. There's a lot of things that I want to say this morning. You know, it's amazing. I went to pick up Everett Miller this morning, and we got a chance to talk on the way here. And many of you may not know how close we are, but we like this, kind of close. And I just asked him because I saw him. I said, how you feeling? I said, you ready to go home? He said, yeah. I never heard him complain. He always here. You find a way here. And what I want to talk about this morning, it's amazing how God works this out. It says the problem of the heart is the problem in the heart. The problem of the heart is the problem in the heart. From time to time, I come through Lakewood during the weekend. I get a chance to see people all the time. I see people come, I see people go. From time to time, they'll say, you know, Mr. Such and such that you met the other day, you know, he died. And you don't really think sometime about it because I wasn't close to him, so I may not have the same understanding about it as someone that's close to him, but I do think about, man, what is it like to be able to be okay with going home? And this three hearts, it's amazing. It says that one of the hearts is a complaining heart. The other one is a forgetful heart. And the last one is a medicated heart. The heart that's been healed. If you would turn over with me to Exodus chapter 14, starting in verse 5. Exodus chapter 14, verse 5. And it reads, it says that when the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them and said, what have we done? We have let the Israelites go and lost their services. So he had his chariots made ready and took his army with him. He took 600 of his best chariots, along with all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh of Egypt, so he pursued the Israelites who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians, all of Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped by the sea near Pi, the opposite of Baal. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, what was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us out to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone? Let us serve the Egyptians. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. A lot of times when you look at this, what happened, Moses, right before this, the Red Sea happened. It was coming up until the time when they were sitting by the Red Sea and they thought about all of the different things that had happened, and they were then complaining because they had just made it to the Red Sea. They had not yet crossed it. So what they did was they started to complain because they said, man, we left Egypt and you're going to bring us out to the desert to die, because they saw the armies coming. But they realized that, well, God took you out of Egypt. What make you think he won't take you through the Red Sea? And then the next story we talk about is they get through the Red Sea. All of the horses and all of the chariots and all of that was topped up in the Red Sea. God said, I will close it up as I have opened it up. He opened it up, they crossed on dry land, and then it came right down to the other side of the Red Sea where they start to complain again. And God himself asked the question, well, why do you complain? And then Moses and Aaron got to a point where they just had to say, you're not mad with us, you're mad with God. Because then they said, well, why can't we find water to drink? When you hear this story of people complaining, I think about my homeboy Everett, and God knows it's hard because he never complains. You always see him laughing. You always see him, just in his old normal self. But I know that it's got to hurt. I've been knowing him for years. I've been knowing his condition for years. And I look at his situation and say, Lord, for the grace of God, there go I. See, we come from the same little community. We did all of the same things. We crossed some of the same paths. And I know, there for the grace of God, there go I. But he never complained. See, sometimes I think that God shows us in the flesh sometimes who we are. In spite of ourselves or because of ourselves, he shows us who we are. I do my best not to complain. But I complain. I'm human. Sometimes you have things to complain about. I do very little, but I still have complaints. And I look at, why do we complain when we've seen all of the rivers that we've crossed in our lives? And we see all of the mountains that we've climbed that people say you could never climb that mountain, and you climbed the mountain, sometimes again and again. But because we forget, which is the next heart that we'll get to, we forget what God has brought us through. We forget the Red Sea. We forget the tears and even the trail of tears that we left behind. We forget all of the different things that happened to us because there's something about the human species that once we cross it, we find a way to forget, unless it's painful. Painful don't leave the same way, because what we do is we hold on to that. We can have 1,000 different things that happen to us and one painful thing, and we'll think about that one painful thing all of our lives, and it'll consume us. And then you might have 2 painful things or 3, but you've had 100 things go well, and you've seen God over and over and over deliver you. And we still will forget. See, all of us do it from time to time. It's just the human nature. We find a tendency and have a tendency just to forget. Sometimes we forget to say, I'm sorry. Sometimes we forget to say, you know what, you were right. Sometimes we forget to say the important things to the important people, but yet and still we forget sometimes that God has brought us through so many different things. And why would he stop now? I got a text this morning from Rodney Scales. Some of you guys would know Rodney, but his daughter had a seizure yesterday. And they found out that it was low sodium or what, but I don't know all of the details. But he texted me at 6 o'clock this morning to say, pray for us. We've been at the hospital all night. So I woke up this morning after preparing this, and I understood. I said, God, sometimes people just need to know that you'll bring us through in spite of and because of. You just keep bringing us through. Prayers. The one thing that we have is we have our prayers. Our prayers go out at times when nothing else will. Sometimes when you can't make a phone call, you can pray. When you can't do a lot of different things and you can't see a person face to face, you could pray. Prayer is a powerful thing. See, I grew up on prayer. I didn't have church. I grew up on prayer. I had a praying grandmother, a praying mom. I mean, I grew up in a household where we always prayed. We never left out to go to church. I would go from time, but we would never go. But I grew up on prayers, and I know how important they are. I've seen them work over and over and over in my life, in my kids' life, and the life of my family, the life of this church. This was a prayer. Me and Cal Wimley walked around right out back, and we prayed in this neighborhood. Right there, many a times, years and years ago. So I see how prayers bring us to this point, but even that, sometimes we'll forget. You know, I looked back in my telephone last night. We were looking for pictures. We got a meeting today, and they said, bring some baby pictures. And I was like, some baby pictures? Who got baby pictures just, at your disposal? So I looked through my phone, and I remember taking some pictures at my mom's, and, I kind of went through. Well, I also had the pictures of the church in there. I didn't realize that I had so many of the pictures, but when it was red, white, and blue. I got pictures when it was red, white, and blue. See, some of y'all never saw it when it was red, white, and blue. But I got pictures of it. It's crazy like that, isn't it? See, when you start to look back, you start to remember what God has brought you through. So often people have probably told you, you'll never make it to do that. That's too far reach. What make you think you could do that? And then you mess around and get close, and sometimes you get scared and start believing what people told you because they want to steal your hope. That's crazy, to let somebody steal your hope. But reflecting back, sometimes not forgetting who God is and what God has done, it helps you to see that you understand that I got to not have a forgetful heart. Because if I start to forget what God has done, I'm not grateful. And it's easy to lose it because we get bombarded every day with something. You just are always bombarded with stuff, and it's stuff on top of stuff, and everything can be just stuff, and then your stuff end up mixing with other people's stuff, and you got a lot of stuff happening. But you can't forget, in spite of all of that, you can see God work. The Israelites got a chance as they approached them. Let's go over to Exodus 15:22. This is the story of the Red Sea. Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Sur. 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. That's why it was called Marah. It means bitter. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it in the water, and the water became fit to drink. Now, for me, that's amazing because when you look at it, it said the water wasn't fit to drink. All he did was grab a piece of wood and throw it in the water. A piece of wood made the water better. Now, I grew up in a little small community, Belle Glade, Florida, and we had sugar cane. Anybody know what sugar cane is? Got a couple people know what sugar cane is down. Yeah. Well, sugar cane, when it's really good, it's sweet. Now, so I can imagine maybe Moses just threw some sugar cane in the water and made the bitter sweet, or at least balanced the alkaline out. But when you look at it, said that all he did, they cried about being out in the desert, and when they found water, they complained about it because it was too bitter. Now, I don't know how bitter it was, but whatever it was, I can only imagine if I hadn't had any water at all. Bitter water should be okay. If I hadn't had any water, I think bitter water should be okay. You know, we spoiled Because a lot of my parents and grandparents, they grew up on wells. And have you ever smelled a well, the sulfur water that comes from a well? It is not the greatest smell in the world. And you might have to drink that. You know, you boil it and do all of that kind of stuff to it, but yet and still, it's still the same water. It wasn't filtered. It wasn't none of that. No chemicals, no additives, no preservatives. Just water out of the ground. Now, some wells were better than others. People found natural underground streams, so it was beautiful. But then there were some people that wouldn't even try to dig a well. They would go and use someone else's well. See, even in our own lives, we got wells. We can only go so deep sometimes. You ever notice that some people you talk to, they can't get deep? You ever notice that? And sometimes it's amazing because you ask the question like, we just never had a real conversation. And you want that sometimes so bad because it does something for the human spirit when you can just be real. See, that's what we try to do our best to offer here is just real. Something that people can come here and it won't taste bitter. And if it does, maybe a song or so will make it sweet. But we ain't gonna complain. We're gonna serve this community. And we're going to see all of the hurdles that we've already crossed. It's amazing how God, every time we think that there's a hurdle in the way, God just either cut it down to size or we just go over it. Now, we hadn't had a lot of big hurdles, I would think, but maybe they are big and I just don't think they're big because I don't see them as big. But the reality of it is our hurdles are just hurdles. Our life hurdles are just life hurdles. You cannot allow the bitterness sometime of water to make you complain to God. You complain because the water bitter and you ain't had none in 3 days. Perfect example. Had a young lady one time that came in and, she didn't come in. Me and my wife went and picked her up. And we brought her and kind of looked out for her and different things. And all we had at the time was these meals. And they're little, packet meals. So we went to give her a packet meal, and she frowned on the packet meal. It was like, baby, that's all we got. But when you see you hadn't eaten in 2 days almost, and the only thing you got, you frown at. I don't care what happens. I pray that I don't get like that. Because in spite of anything, I can understand I don't want it either. But if I ain't had nothing in a couple of days, that right there will do. That'll do. So I've learned not to be forgetful. I see those moments, and I'm also grateful that God, for your grace, there go I. I have been in a lot of different things and seen a lot of different things, but there's a lot of places that I haven't been. There's a lot of journeys that I haven't gone on, and I don't want to go. I'd rather someone tell me about them. I'll take your word for it. But there's also the moments where we want people to share their journey with us so that we can be inspired, so we can understand how it is that you get through some of the stuff that you get through. See, it's when you heal from something. It's when you find a way not to forget, man, God has not forgotten. Moses told him, said, God hear your prayers. He's still listening. But we so spoiled sometimes we want it right now, but why it ain't coming right now? I want it today. One time. But then as we look at life and you see the journey of the Egyptians and the Israelites, and you see just how God said, I will take you from where you are to where you want to be, and just stop complaining. I got you. So right now, where we are and where we are going is something more magnificent than we understand. The promised land right there, they walked around for 40 years and didn't realize it was right there. And when they went over in it, you know what they said? They said they were giants in the land. Some people think it's giants in Lakewood. We walked around Lakewood the other day, and I had some students here last Monday. And let me give you a perfect dynamic of how it goes. If you go this way a couple of blocks, you go in, it's homes. People own homes. Is they take care of their homes. Some of them abandoned, but yet it's still their homes. If you go this way, they're homes, and some of them are a little more fixed up in some of that area. Then you go behind that, and it changes. But now you mess around and go that way across Lakewood and just keep going and make a right by that store. Not the store, the store. You got to make a right, and you make that right by the store. Everything changed. Now this is only 10 blocks away. So as we walking through the neighborhood, it was one guy working on the power outside. He was one of the contractors, and he said, "What are y'all doing?" Because it was blacks and whites. It was several different people kind of traveling with us. So he said, "Well, what are y'all doing?" We said, "We're just taking a survey of the neighborhood. I'm the pastor around the corner, and these are some students from McAfee School of Theology, and they're just doing a class project." They said, "Well, what are y'all trying to find out in the class project?" "Yeah, all kind of stuff. Assets in the community, liabilities in the community, just kind of different things that they're asking for, right?" And then the guy said, "I'm waiting on y'all to find the assets." And I said, "Shoot, I'm a pastor. There's a church around the corner. I'm an asset to the community." He said, "Good luck, Pastor." Now, he also said, "Yeah, but after you really think about it, if it's a lot of people in this community, because I work in a lot of parts of it, it's a lot of people here. They're good people. They're working people. They go to work every day. I mean, it's a regular neighborhood." But what happens is we often see so much of the element that's always in your face that you can't see beyond it. Sometimes when your problem's right here, you don't see, man, the promised land is right there. You can't see through the problem. And God always gives us a way to see through the problem. And the best way is to look back and reflect. He keep doing it. If you know that there's a problem and you can't see through it, all you got to do is ask, "Father, help me see through this problem." Just like that, it happens. It might not be today, might not be tomorrow, but as soon as you think about it again, you say, "You know what? He just showed it to me." Now, we can't ignore it either. Because sometimes, we ask God for something and then we'll say, "Yeah, but I ain't want that. That wasn't the results I wanted there." So sometimes when we get the results that we don't want, we ignore the problem. Because we're not getting the results that we asked for. When people say pray to God specifically, I do pray to him specifically. But I also know that I need to say, "Not my will, but your will be done." That makes the difference. See, if Jesus had to pray that prayer, why don't we have to pray it? Not your will. Not your own personal will. It's not yours. It's not mine. It's his will be done. Again, me and Everett kind of talked a little bit on the way in, and just to see, he was like, "Fat, I'm ready, Fat. Fat, I'm ready. I'm sad, he happy." That's the crazy part. It's like, man, that's my dog. But I gotta be happy for him. I can't be sad for him. I can't look at a situation and say, "You know what? I don't want that for you." See, that's the same way that we don't think about having this reflective heart. Now we're gonna move to the medicated heart. Now we'll move to the medicated heart. If you would, turn over with me to Philippians 4. Faith in God is medication for the soul. Faith in God is medication for the soul. Philippians 4, for starting in verse 10. It said, I rejoiced greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know that what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to be or to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. So often we think that when we are in need that God is not with us. And the truth is sometimes God is more with us then than he ever is, because we depend on him more at that time than ever. So when you look at all of the situation, when you are in need, God can come to your rescue so that you don't forget. That's how your heart is medicated, to learn to be content with much and content with little. See, if you get prideful when you get much and you get loathful when you have little, then that's not what God asks. He say, be who you are in spite of what it looked like. And so often we cannot see that in spite of what it looks like, we got to know our contentment. See, God loves us in spite of that. In spite of whether we have plenty or we have nothing, that is not the way God shows us love. Now, will God give you something to show you a look? Yes, he will. He'll look out for you, hook you up. I believe that. But I also know that God ain't in the business of finances like that. He don't care nothing about that. Now, should you take care of it? He said, yes. Be mindful, be thoughtful, be fruitful, be all of the different things that you need to be with the little that he give you or the much that he give you. But it does not matter. You will know better or know less when you have less or when you have more. You're no better off. And God said, I've learned the art of being content. If I got $2 or $3 in my pocket, people don't know. If I don't have nothing in my pocket, people don't know. Because most of the time, I just don't worry about it. I got somebody to worry about that for me. Y'all understand that, don't you? Oh, Lord. But again, God always show up. Always show out. So when you've seen it over and over and over, then you know, and after a while, your heart just starts to say, you know what? Whew, thank you, Father, for medicating my heart. Because sometimes we cannot see, we cannot understand, we cannot feel what God is doing, but you have to just say thank you for medicating my heart. I've seen some young men this week at one of the mentoring classes that I have on Wednesday. And there was this young kid that came in a little late. His name is Michael. Well, Michael ran in and he came in, and it was funny because when he got there, he was probably one of the smarter kids in the room, but he was also one of the more hyper kids in the room. So he was all over the place. But every time he answered something, hey, baby, every time he answered something, then he would always say, ain't I smart? And we was like, yeah, Mike, you smart. And after a while, you can tell that he has never gotten the affirmations that he was a smart kid. And he really was. It wasn't just, because it's hard for me to lie like that. I tell you, I save my lies till I need them. Don't just use up your lies anywhere. Please do not do that. You ain't got but a couple. Save them. But I looked at Mike and I thought, man, this is a kid that if he had more affirmation, tell him where his life would be. So the only affirmation he may get is one day a week for 45 minutes that you smart. Yes, you smart. Yes, you smart. Yes, you're smart. And he really is smart. And maybe somehow, some way, it'll catch root, and he'll go home one night and he'll realize that in spite of my circumstances, I'm smart and I'm going to make it out of my situation. Maybe we can inspire this young man to get out of his situation, because I can't take all of them out. I wish I could. My arms aren't that long, but God is. And you have to just realize sometimes that all I got is prayer. All I got is this time that I can spend with them on a Wednesday for 45 minutes or so. So I'll do that. I give them that. So I thank God for the time that you can put in to tell a Michael, man, you're smart. Yes, you're smart. Yes, you're smart. Because one day you'll see that Michael somewhere doing something. He'll say, I remember you telling me that. I didn't get in trouble and I did okay, because I remember you telling me that I could do it. I believed it. Somehow, some way, I believed that. See, all it is the power of belief. The system that we're under is all about belief. Whatever you believe you are, that's who you are. If you believe that you're nothing, you feel like nothing. When you believe that you're something, you feel like something. And that's not to be better or less, but it's just wherever you are and however you feel, that's where you are. See, what we are learning is that we're not going to be who the world has told us we are. This little community and this church in this community is not going to be the same community because we're here. See, we become the heartbeat. We become the compass for this community. We guide them where they need guiding. We lead where they need leading. We follow where we need to follow. And we just make sure that we keep God in front of us and keep doing what he asks us to do. And I guarantee you, we don't have to worry about that. That's why we heal hearts. See, when you come in Lakewood, you come here to heal. See, we sick. All of us sick. All of us. There's not a human being alive that's not sick. That's why we come here. This is a hospital for the sin sick. This ain't high church. We ain't gonna wear robes unless it's a funeral. Every now and then you'll catch me at a wedding or funeral with one on. But that's out of respect. But I say that because I want us to understand who we are. And I want us to understand that we can actually invite somebody to it too. You know, when you love something to eat, the first thing when you find one of them little restaurants and it's real good, what's the first thing you do? You tell somebody. Y'all don't like us or something? Tell somebody. See, this is a beautiful thing, because what is about to happen, I'm telling you, it's the beauty in it is that it's real, uncut, uncensored. We ain't gonna put no cut on this. This real. And we're gonna remain that way until we leave here 150 years from now, however long we're gonna be here. We gonna keep it real in Lakewood. Whatever happens, we're gonna keep it real. And the way that we get a chance to see God differently is that we get a chance to see him through a lens of a healed heart, of a heart that's been medicated by the time over and over again where he's had to come and heal us. We've had to go help him heal other people, and we get healed in the process. That's the beautiful thing about healing. Sometimes when you go touch somebody else, it's your healing that you needed. It wasn't necessarily theirs. So often we get caught up into it's mine, and it's not. So I say to you today that faith in God is the meditation for our souls. It's the medication for our souls. If we can just believe and understand that all of those journeys that we've come through, there's a reason why. Paul understood it well in Philippians. Many of us understand it well because we've seen God do something over and over and over again. And it happens so fast sometimes we forget that he did it. You forget. So we cannot forget. And we got to make sure that we understand that we got to be thoughtful in everything that we do. We got to think about God first, think about ourselves next, and think about the person you're helping after. You got to make sure you're safe. You got to make sure all of that. But we got to take care of what God has given us. And part of that is taking care of yourself. Sometimes it's the hardest person to take care of. You won't go get the rest you need. See, I'm one person, I'll lay it down on you. When it's time to lay it down, I'll lay it down. But I also know that when it's time to go, it's time to go. And sometimes you have to go until it's time to lay it down. So I'll say to you today, let's do what God has asked us to do. Let's find a way to understand that the heart of the problem is the problem in the heart. The heart of our problems are the problems that's inside of our heart. And as we understand that, we get a chance to see God work in our lives over and over and over again, and we can witness every time he does it so we don't forget. And as we don't forget, then we understand that just having a medicated heart, a heart that is healed so that you can help others heal, a heart that is open so that you can encompass all of the things that God has given you to do. But having a heart to love in spite of and because of is the heart that we need and we're going to have here in Lakewood. So I thank you as we get ready to go to song and have a small communion by Miss Charlotte Rivers. I thank you so much for your time and energy this morning. Amen? Amen.
And that's going to conclude our service for today. We hope that you enjoyed service. We hope that you got a good word to help remember how faith is a medication of our hearts. And I am going to end service today with a prayer, so pray with me. Father, thank you so much for today. We have had an amazing time with you today. We have had an amazing time with each other, just worshiping you, just learning a little bit more about you and how much you love us. You're sending us out this week with encouragement to fill our hearts, fill our souls, and fill our minds, to take back to our households and to our jobs, and to be the type of people that you call us to be and that you know that we can be. Help us to remember that. Help us to make prayer a daily priority in our lives this week. Help us to remember people who need to be remembered this week. Help us to be excited about all of the things that you have going on in the community to help empower the community. Help us to just be grateful that we have a part in your great big plan about what you want to do for just the wellness of humanity. Again, we thank you so much for this opportunity to worship. We thank you so much for the love that we have for each other. And it's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. Amen. You are dismissed.